Welcome everyone to yet another exciting Jiyo Parsi session. Friday forums are organized by Jiyo Parsi, and they are an interactive session for most people to get some more idea about what we are doing at Jiyo Parsi. For more information, you could log into our website, that's geoparsi.org. And we would just at Geoparsi like to give a big thank you to the Government of India, Ministry of Minority Affairs, for sponsoring a scheme as unique as Geoparsi. Geoparsi, we aim to arrest the decline that our Parsi community is facing in India. Advocacy is a major component of Geoparsi, where we try to influence mindsets, and Friday Forum is one virtual platform where we try to do the same. There are many questions that come. Why preserve the Parsis? What is the community contributing to India or to the society at large? At Friday Forum, we attempt to answer some of these questions. Today's speaker is an eminent psychiatrist, Dr. Pervin Dadachanji. She has a special interest in child and adolescent psychiatry. She has a private practice of more than 25 years. She's been conducting parenting workshops and has also written a very interesting book, Recipe for Parenting. I'm sure most of us parents have a lot of questions on how to raise children in today's world. It's not an easy task. At Geoparsi, we sponsor IVF treatment. We encourage couples to go and have more children. But then we also need to give tips on how to handle the children that we have. Myself, I have 3 kids. I've been working as a counselor with Geoparsis in the last 6 years. I myself have a lot of questions to be asking Dr. Dadachanji. And I'm sure most of you also will be having quite a few questions. This is an interactive session, so please write all your questions or comments in our chat box. And at the end of the presentation, Dr. Dadachanji will herself be answering most of them. Thank you so much, Dr. Dadachanji, for sharing your valuable time and your experience and knowledge. Over to you, Doctor.
Thank you, Pearl. Good evening, everybody. So today's session is going to be on effective parenting, raising resilient children. So I would just like to start with one question to all of you, that, what are your dreams for your child, or what do you want your child to be as an adult? What are the things that you can think of? If you can just put it across, we can start off from there. So, thinking of, where do I see my child? What do you want? What do I want from my child? What are the things that I would like my child to be? So what are the things that you can think of?
The answers are coming. But personally, ma'am, I would like my children to be good human beings and follow the tenets of good thoughts, good words, and good deeds, ma'am.
Okay, lovely. That's nice.
Yeah, we're still waiting for the answers.
Answers to come. Okay, but I think our the good thoughts, good words, good deeds does encompass so much of what we all want our children to be, whether it's a Parsi child or a Hindu child or a Christian child or anyone. We do want that, right?
Yes, yeah. A few of them are writing, we want our kids to become doctors. Some have mentioned, like Sanobar is
a lot
writing,
of hard work.
Yes, some of them are writing, Sanobar especially is written to be successful as well as happy.
Right. Okay. Yes, I think happy is really important. Successful also, but success is in so many different forms, right?
True.
Anybody else?
Not yet, ma'am.
Okay, so anyway, if we are, let's go further, then maybe, yes, at the end of the session, people will have a lot more questions. So now this slide, you see on the left, you see J.K. Rowling. In the middle, you see the Starbucks sign, but basically it is about Harry Schultz, who's the CEO of Starbucks. And then you have Lakshmi Agarwal, who is the person, the acid attack victim. So why did I put up this when we are talking about children? The reason why I put up this is because all these people have become have come out of really adverse situations and risen above it and grown. So, like J.K. Rowling, apparently she gave her first Harry Potter book 12 times to 12 different publications before someone agreed to publish her book. I believe that Harry shows he went to 254 investors before someone believed in investing in Starbucks, and the rest is history. And this girl, Lakshmi, when she was 15 years old, had acid thrown on her face. She just didn't give in. She did so many things to get out, started an NGO, started a family, everything, talked about acid attack victims, did so many things to stop acid being sold on a regular basis. So these people came out of adversity and they grew. So, this is what resilience is all about. That adversity affects all of us. That is the bad news, that we will all go through some form of issues at some time in our lives. But the point is how we get out of it and how we move on, which is what we need to teach our children. And that is not, somebody may say that, oh, but my child isn't like that. My child has a lot of temperament issues, etc. But the good news about resilience is that you can build it over a period of time. And I think as parents, if we start when our children are young, we are able to do that in a far better way. So, what are the characteristics of children, resilient children? The next slide, please. So these are all the characteristics which had been talked about by Ginsberg about resilience. So a child who's confident, competent, connected, has a great character, has done a lot of contribution in some way, who can cope well and who can be emotionally under control. So the first one, the next slide, please, is about confidence. Next one. So, what is confidence? So, when we talk about confidence, we are talking about a child having the ability to say that I can do this. Children who are confident have been found to be far, far better off in terms of handling failure. They can bounce back from any challenges that they have. They are more able to take on new tasks, expand their social circle. So, confidence is a really important thing for all of us. And how do we gain that confidence? The next slide, please. So now we start with the first thing in terms of increasing your children's confidence is praise and acknowledgement. Now, this is a really important thing about praising your child. Sometimes I think especially I think in our Indian context, we believe that if we praise too much, bachcho matha par chari jaise, that kind of thing. But that is not a fact at all. Children who are praised have a better sense of self. But the important thing about praise is that you don't, so your child comes with a drawing where there are just some black marks all over it. And you say, oh, wonderful, you're going to be the next MF Hussain. Now, that is not praise. That is going a little overboard. Instead, if you acknowledge what he has done, that, oh, you've got this paper, you've done these black marks all over it. Wow, this is lovely. Maybe you can add a little purple over here, etc. So, praising and acknowledging is far, far better than just pointing out the negatives. In fact, if you are acknowledging your child's behavior more often, then when you are critical about it, the child will be able to accept it without his confidence going down. The second part is banning of labels. I think we need to be very careful about the labels we give our children, whether it's good girl, bad boy, clever girl, dumb kid. So these labels are really bad for our children. Why? Because when you tell your child that, oh, you're a clever girl, you're putting a lot of pressure on her. Though you've done it, you've praised it, but you've not praised the behavior, like saying that, oh, you did very well in math. Instead, you say clever girl. So, what does the child feel? Oh gosh, I have to be clever all the time. Or you tell your son that you're a bad boy instead of saying that you should not have whacked your sister. It was a wrong thing to whack your sister, or even a bad thing to whack your sister. But you say bad boy, so the child feels that, oh, I'm totally bad, so I can't do anything about it. Also, be careful about telling your children not to label each other. Like in my house, there was a rule that nobody used word like loser, stupid, idiot. It was just banned. And of course, what does that mean? That we have to be very careful about what words we use with our children or with anyone else. Also, what else makes children more confident about themselves is when you focus on their strengths. So instead of talking about, oh, you are so bad at playing badminton, if you focus on the fact that it could be something as, uh, I mean, I think using the word trivial is wrong, but it could be something like your child has a fabulous way of making friends. I think that's a great strength. In fact, when I talk to kids and when I tell children who come to me with really low self esteem that what are your strengths, they somehow cannot even give me one strength of theirs. Then I talk about, say, relationships. So I say that, okay, do you have friends? And they'll say, yes, I have 3 very good friends. So then I talk about that as being a strength where you are able to maintain friendships with other kids. So it's very important for us to focus on our children's strengths rather than on their challenges, or earlier what we would call as their weaknesses. And of course, the fourth point about confidence is comparisons. We do not compare. In fact, I think as parents, what we do, when we compare, we feel that we're doing it to um, to enhance our other child. So, for example, if my daughter is eating up all her food very well, and I'll shout at my son and say, just look at her, she's eating everything, and look at you, you are not. What does it do to him? Does it make him eat his food? No. What he thinks is, I hate my sister. She's such a pain. She eats up all her food. I often give this example about comparison, and this is often done when I'm talking to a group of moms, that just imagine that your husband, you've made a lovely dish for him and he eats it and says, oh well, it's okay, but my mother makes that better. Does that make you feel like next time to do a better job of that meal? No, what it makes you feel is, oh God, I hate his mother for being like that. So, to be very careful about not comparing, especially not comparing two kids. The next one, please. The next one is about competence. Okay? So, what is competence? Competence is the ability to do something successfully and efficiently. Okay, so if you can do something, you can stay on track, you can notice what's needed to uh, be done in that situation and you respond. That is what is competence. And how do we as parents increase our children's competence? The next slide, please. First of all, you give them opportunities to master skills. So, what happens is that for parents who do their children's homework, who do things for them, what are you doing? You are not giving them opportunities to master their skills. Okay, what is so for example, if you want your child, you start with small things. Now if it's a little child, you don't want to be buttoning his uh, shirt buttons all the time when he's going to school. He needs to learn to do it. So you start with small things. You can perhaps make him do buttons which he can hold, so a bigger button. If he cannot he tries to wear his socks. If he cannot wear his socks, help him a little with it. So these are, if we do these things, if we help them, what are we teaching them? We're teaching the child that I am good enough to do it. And that is very important for competence, that I am able to. Even something like crossing a road, I mean, I think, of course, we're all scared of our children crossing the road. So you start with a small exercise where they just cross a little street. So they develop that skill. Then you can go to the next skill of crossing a road which is not very crowded. So, if we are able to give them that ability to feel that, yes, I am capable of doing it, and not hover around and do everything for them, I think these are things which get our children to not be able to handle any adversity because, oh, well, my parents have done it for me, now I can't do it myself. The next slide, please. So, the third one is connectedness. Next slide. And connectedness means what? It is about forging a bond between two people. And what is happening is, in fact, about connectedness and communication and pro social behavior. There's a lot of studies which have shown right now that if your longevity of life is also based on your relationships. In fact, Harvard did a really big study about it, that relationships are the most important thing in the world. So you need to start helping your child to form these relationships from the beginning. Their first relationships are going to be with you. And then gradually they go to other situations and other people. So starting there is very important. And the point about there is a lower prevalence of mental illnesses in people with pro-social behaviors. Also, physical health is far better. So I think communication, connectedness is really very important. So now, next slide, please. So how do you build on connectedness? So the first thing is protection by parents. So as parents, we need to, of course, be uh, give our children the freedom to move and do things themselves, but we also need for them to feel that we protect them. We are there to help them, that they know that anytime I can go up to my mom and tell her anything. So if that starts when they are young, what you really need them is in during their teenage days for them to come up to you and say, hey mom, this is what I did and I need help. If you don't give them that feeling that I am there for you, it will, this kind of connectedness will never happen. Reciprocity, now this I would talk about in as an example would be at a dining table. So dining table conversations are very important for reciprocity. Dining table conversations are not when they are young about eat your veggies, eat this, shove food into their mouth, or in the later years, what have you studied? Have you finished this work? In fact, I've seen so many kids like this, that the parents say that, oh, my child just refuses to have dinner with us. But then when we talk about what is the conversation at dinner, what does it turn out? Have you done your homework? What were your marks? Father will ask, oh my God, you did so badly. Why haven't you been studying? And then it becomes a lecture. So that is not increasing connectedness. Connectedness isn't happening even when you're watching television, because everyone is watching television. There is no interaction happening. Now, optimum parental control is where parents have the control, but it's optimum. It's not excessive. You don't want helicopter parents all around the place. And the last point, which has been really bad for tech, is the tech disconnect, which we are noticing. And we have to formulate, I think this tech disconnect can be a full webinar or a full day workshop or even 2-day workshops, because that is really an issue for a lot of parents. But technology, we have to accept, is going to be there. it is good, but there has to be some rules in place. So if any of the parents who I am talking to, they have younger kids, set certain rules from the beginning before you say give. You feel very excited, okay, my child has turned 13. I think 13 is an old age. People are giving mobile phones to children much earlier. But anyway, I'm looking at it. When I had given my children their phone, it was when they turned 13, because that was the time when they would be doing traveling somewhere on their own without me being there. And of course, that time we didn't have smartphones, so it was much easier. But have rules in place. Don't make rules after your child uh, goes crazy. So, for example, okay, you can get your phone, but it stays with me while you are studying. After your homework is done, you will get it. And in the night at 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock, whatever the time is, you have to give it back to me. You may have to do this every day, where you will have to go and take the phone. I used to do that, but do it. Set some boundaries before you give children what you need to do. Also, I think we need to have, like, if you have younger kids, don't give them laptops. Don't have computers in a place where you can be watching what is happening. And also, if you want to see what the child is doing, meaning what is she, what sites she is going on, from the beginning, tell your kids that I will be keeping a tab. And this is when you give the phone to younger kids, or you see on the laptops. Later on, you will have to trust your kids, otherwise it's going to lead to a lot of issues. The next slide, please. Okay, the other part of resilience is character. So there is this very interesting thing which I had read a long time back somewhere, which said that personality is that which a child has when people are looking. Character is what a person has when people are not looking. So that is what we want our children to have. We want them to be compassionate. We want them to be generous. We want them to be honest. We want them to express how they are feeling without going completely crazy. We want them to be bothered about others. So it is really important, because especially in this time which we are living in, where morality, okay, morality is the wrong word, where just having values is very important. We have to do that for kids from the beginning, to teach them how to build their character. The next slide. So, teaching them what is right and what is wrong. So, they need to know that from the beginning. And how do they know that? When they see us doing certain things. So, for example, if I have someone calls me on my home phone, and I'm told that this is the person, and what do I say? That, oh, just say I'm not at home. Now my little child is sitting over there and seeing that mom is lying. So from the beginning, they understand this. Uh, uh, so it's okay to lie. So especially with younger kids, one needs to be very careful about being the right role models and teaching them what is right and what is wrong. So, for example, if your child is being nasty to the maid, or is hitting the maid, or even hitting you, what happens is, when younger kids hit us, we don't respond and tell them, no, darling, this is not right. Nobody hits in our home. So because it, of course, it doesn't hurt us, but the child is going to learn that hitting is okay, and may go out tomorrow and hit another child, and then you'll have a big issue. So telling them this is very important. I think all of us know that empathy is a really, really necessary thing for the overall growth of our children. Empathy is being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes, being able to understand what that person is going through. And how do you teach children empathy? You don't just talk about it and teach it, but you have these teachable moments. So, for example, if you've gone to the park and you see one child soothing another, you can just point to your child and say, how sweet that little boy is uh, cleaning up his sister's tears. That's such a, he must be thinking that because she fell, she must be feeling very sad. So, teaching children to be able to do that, and you need to start it from the beginning, because children learn as they just go on absorbing things over, children, teenagers, they appear to be non-empathetic, which is absolutely not there. It's just that it's an appearance. Especially if you have taught them from the beginning to be empathetic, they will. But teen years are the time when children are very self-centered at that point. Like, what is in it for me? So I remember this example where I got really mad at my kids, that during the terror attacks, the kids had been sleeping and they woke up in the morning. And I told them that this is what has happened, and the Taj and the Oberoi, and people have been, there has been a terror attack, etc. And my kids were so thrilled because they didn't have to go to school, and I was really mad at them. And then, of course, afterwards, then when I explained it to them and when I spoke to them, and then I also realized that I should accept that at that point, what is important for them is, how does this affect me? I don't have to go to school, I don't have to give an exam. Then correcting the behavior, really important. So, for example, if my child has stolen somebody's, say, book, and I find a book which is not hers, and I ask her, and she says, oh no, I got it from a friend. And then you realize that, well, it's not, uh, uh, we don't know how you have got it. And then you find out that it belongs to a friend. The important thing here is not to only correct the behavior where you just tell her that, okay, give it to the friend, take her with you, give the book to the friend, for her to apologize that she has done this. Because what is important is also for her to understand and feel that uh, uh, feeling of anxiety that, gosh, I've done something wrong, and I have to correct the behavior. Don't let these kind of things go, because these do not build moral values in our children. And then teaching them to compromise and negotiate, really important, because that also helps them to build their character. Because compromising does not, compromise is not a negative word. Compromise is a very smart thing to do, and I always tell my kids that compromising and negotiating is really, really important. Negotiation means what? Your child wants to go to sleep at a certain time, you don't want her to go to sleep so late. Negotiate that, okay, on Friday, Saturday, you can go to sleep late. On the other days, you need to be sleeping early. So this is about uh, character. Now we go on to contribution. So next slide, please. So what is contribution? Contribution doesn't mean giving money. And contribution is where children feel that they have contributed, or their actions have made a difference. And when they realize this, so for example, playing a football game, and it may not be that your daughter has scored a goal. It could just be that her being able to pass the ball to the person who has scored the goal is important, because then you feel you've contributed to the game. Or when you do a project together. So contribution also makes the child feel, it may not be that you come first in something, but you have contributed to it. So that is very important. So how do you help your child with this? The next slide, please. So again, first thing is, it's all about effort. So it's not about result. So this is a story which I always talk about. So my daughter used to play football and she was really very good at it. Uh, there was a time when she would come home and I would ask her, so you had a football match, what happened? So she would say that, Mama, we lost, but I played well. And I think that that was something which was really good, because she was looking at the effort which she had put in, that she had played well. And that is what is important. And as parents, we need to do that. So your child comes home with a 6 on 10, but has really slogged to get that 6 on 10. They need to be praised for what they have done. So look at the effort. And I think this is, according to me, this has been my mantra since I was a kid, that I would look at how much that I have put in the effort. So if the result was commensurate to the effort, wonderful. But if it was not, it didn't bother me much, because I knew that I had done as much as I could. Teaching our children about altruism. So, altruism is about giving. It does not mean just giving money. It could be like right now, I think during the pandemic, I've seen that there have been so many things which children have done. I have had kids sending me, they've done a Facebook page where they have collected money for all the stray dogs who were not being fed during the quarantine, or children doing FaceTime with their grandparents every day because the grandparents were not able to meet them. These are all little altruistic acts which are really, really important. The third thing is chores. I think we live in a society where we have help to do everything. And so the child doesn't feel that she has contributed. So if one can do it, and please let me tell you that if you've never done it, and now because we don't have our help and maids, etc., you make your child do it, especially an adolescent or a pre-adolescent, you are not going to be able to get them to do them now. So, this is also from the time they are young. Take your plates to the kitchen, whether it's dad, whether it's mom, whether it's anyone, we can all do that. This also gives the child a sense of, responsibility, etc. And invite your children's opinion. I think we often don't do that. Some of us do it too much, and some of us just don't do it at all. Put a situation to them, especially our adolescents. I think we don't realize how wise they are often. I mean, I've had these conversations with my kids for years now, where we would talk about something and I would say something and I would just realize, wow, what my child says has been really wise. And when they do that, and then you say, yes, I hear you and I agree completely, I will make a change here, it gives them the sense that they are also contributing to the family or contributing to you in some way. The next one. Okay, so now this is about coping. And I think this is really, really important. How we respond to stress, how we handle a situation which will disappoint us, which may anger us, frustrate us, but we still handle it and move on. So, coping skills are really, really necessary to teach our children. Next one, please. So the first one comes with problem solving. And how do you help? What is problem solving? It just doesn't mean solving a problem. There are steps to it. So let's give an example of okay. So you have a child, your um, teen daughter, who is who you and she are constantly fighting about. She wants to go out till a certain time every time, and you want her to come back at a certain time. So the thing is to sit down and solve the problem, like saying that, okay, I the problem is that you stay out much later than what I tell you to. So when I say 12 o'clock, you have to be home, you are coming home at 1:30, and this doesn't work for me. So what is the solution? So you tell me your solutions, I'll tell you mine. So what are your daughter may say, okay, I mean, they can come up with some bizarre ones, but mostly when you do this, kids come up with sensible ones. So one of the solutions would be that, Mum, 12 o'clock is really too early. Are people come in at 11 for parties and all, and you tell me to come at 12? Let me at least come at 12:30, or let me come at 1. Or you can agree to do that once in a month or twice in a month, whatever. Let the child give the solution. If possible, use her solution, and then see how that goes, and then go to the next. So this helps coping. Otherwise, what happens is your child goes completely hysterical and throws a tantrum, and then you're not really helping. The next thing is role modeling. It also, children look at you. If you are going to freak out during a problem situation, your child is going to learn that and just do that, because for him it is that when I see my dad responding to some stress by just screaming the house down, that is what I learn. So we need to be careful about how we teach our children to cope. Also, setting some certain clear boundaries is really very important for us to uh, do. So, what is clear boundaries? Setting certain boundaries about behaviors that, in our house, we don't shout. You do not talk rudely to me because I do not talk rudely to you. So, certain things, and especially with our pre adolescents, adolescents, young adult kids, we feel that it's okay for me to shout at my child, but when my child shouts back at me, it's not done. I think we need to look at setting clear boundaries for all of us. Also, for coping, routines are very important, especially in this time of the pandemic. If you will notice that when people set routines for themselves, they are more in control and more able to cope. So, in fact, I've done loads of webinars, especially in the beginning of lockdown, and one of the things which I have stressed is routine. Routine makes us handle things far better than just letting it go, because then we have a set thing that, okay, I'll wake up, I will be doing this, then I will be helping my children with their studies, then I will do the cooking, etc. So routines also are really useful to help us to cope with a situation. The last one now is about control. So, when we talk about control, what do we mean? Managing our emotions and behavior. Okay. So, calming ourselves down is really important. So, control and coping do have a little in common, but control of one's emotions helps us far, far better in maintaining relationships, whether it's with your boss, whether it's with your a partner, whether it's with your child, etc. So, what are the things that one can do about in terms of controlling? The next slide, please. So, first of all, teaching your children to label emotions. I think we really need to do that. What happens is that children only understand the emotion of anger because that is what we are talking about. So, when you see your child completely lose control and scream and shout, etc., instead of you screaming or saying, "Don't you dare shout," and God forbid if it's a girl, it will be, "Arey, you're shouting at me like this. Try it with your mother-in-law and see what she will do." We go into all these kind of things. That doesn't help. The point here is label the emotion, which means that I can see that you're angry because you are frustrated that I didn't allow you to go for this party. So we're not talking about anger here. We are talking that you are frustrated, you are anxious, you are upset, you are sad. If we start with these emotions from the time that children are young, it really helps them to be able to say that, okay, I am not really angry, I am just frustrated. Scaffolding is where a parent, it's literally like the scaffolding of a building where you sort of contain your child's feelings, help your child slowly to handle her emotions and keep them contained for her till she is able to help herself. Now, this is something, of course, which we can't do right now, but go outside, go out, play, do some sport, run, cycle. If you have to be inside, skip, do anything which increases the oxygenation to your brain and makes you feel more, uh, uh, which just helps you feel calmer and better. And the last one is calming techniques. So, a lot of research has been done about meditation and the mindfulness meditation part, which means that you don't have to be completely thoughtless when you meditate, but you let thoughts come and thoughts go. Even just plain breathing exercises helps. For some children, even these coloring books help. Anything which helps you to calm down. In fact, I remember this one child who used to get really frustrated and angry and upset. And when that happened to her, she was a 14-year-old girl having issues with friends, etc. She used to harm herself by cutting herself. Then we were talking about calming techniques. What would help her to handle the situation better? And she said that, doctor, what I can do is I can put on makeup. So, I find that that calms me down. So she would just sit with her makeup kit and just put makeup, do some different styles, whatever on her face. And that helped her. So calming can be any form. It doesn't need to only be meditation. It can be reading a book, listening to music, but we have to teach our kids from the beginning how to handle how to handle their emotions, because an emotionally healthy child is all about being able to control her uh, uh, negative feelings. Next slide, please. So now this is the last slide. I just wanted to end with a little quote on resilience, which was about the oak fought the wind and was broken, while the willow bent when it must and survived. So that is what we need to teach our children, to go with the flow, to be able to handle whatever adversities come in their way and flourish and be happy, be successful, have wonderful relationships. And I mean, as I think all of us want that for our children. Thank you. Now, any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pervin. It was an amazing session. We've got a lot of positive feedback and a few questions also coming up. Yeah, the first question that's come up is from Roshan Anklesarya. She would like to know, would the first deserve, then desire attitude help the child? First deserve and then desire. Would that parenting technique or attitude
I
help
think
the
as
child?
parents, sometimes we tend to do that, now that you don't deserve it, so you don't get it. I think we need to be a
Yeah.
little more, uh, is, not to keep those two things together. So, okay, if you do well in your exam, then you will get a mobile phone. If it is done for one thing, it is fine. But when we tend to do it a lot, where this is, according to me, first deserve then desire, becomes a bit of a reward punishment kind of thing. And that does not work, because children feel everything is conditional, and then they start putting conditions. And as I used to say to parents, when you do too much of this kind of thing, they will say, okay, what will you give me to breathe eventually? Because you're constantly in a thing that, okay, you do this, then you will get that. So not something which should be a constant which one uses, but using it uh, very judiciously, yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Pari. The next question is from Abnaz Dati Barjor. My child is 16 and an all rounder, an ideal child a parent would want. Friends with all classmates, but has no best friend or group she belongs to. How can I help her? She has no hobbies, is a jack of all, but master
Okay.
of none. How
I
can I
think
help my daughter?
that one does not need to have a group or a best friend. In fact, I think the fact is that this child is obviously able to be friends with lots of people. So she's obviously got the skills to deal with it. And uh, see, hobbies is different from jack of all trades, master of none. A hobby doesn't mean you have to be perfect in it. A hobby could be something you like. You can suck at tennis, but you love playing it. So, well, that's your hobby, but you may not be good at it, and that is okay. So she obviously, I mean, according to me, this kind of child is what I would call an emotionally healthy child, because she is so interactive and friendly and has so many friends. So I would not bother about not having that best friend.
Great. Great. Dr. Kama is also asking that could you just speak about peer pressure and consumerism today in the youth?
Okay,
Peer pressure and
that
consumerism.
would be a whole webinar on peer pressure. The I feel that as parents, what we, first of all, according to me, important is role modeling. So if the minute that new iPhone comes into the market and you buy it for yourself, and you are also propagating a way of consumerism which your child is seeing. So that would be one thing. The other thing is, as parents, you have to put certain things in place. Like for me, it used to always be about rules. So these are our house rules. My kids would come and say, no, but this one allows this and that one has got this. And I would say that, no, darling, this is our house rules. And as parents, I think we need to be very clear about certain things that need to be done. So, for example, again, this is an example which I have given in the past, and whenever I'm talking about my kids have know that I am going to say this. So, I remember that once my daughter wanted to have a party when she was 18, and she wanted to have alcohol in the party, and I said, no, you cannot have alcohol. And she said, oh, well, then no, none of my friends will come. So I said, okay, then we don't have a party because you're not allowed to drink. And we had a, I mean, I just stuck to my guns. She agreed then to have a party without alcohol, and she called 120 kids, and 97 children turned up for the party. And of course, I could have given in and said, okay, let it be. But then, this is where, as parents, we need to have certain things, especially when it comes to safety. You put your foot down and don't bow down to peer pressure. The other way is that sometimes one needs to give in a little also, especially when you see that that things are changing. So, for example, you have a 16-year-old boy and you expect him to come home from a party at 11 o'clock when parties start at 11. Maybe, sometimes we don't need to look at how our parents were, that, oh, well, I was told that I had to be home at 9 o'clock and I was home at 9. So I'm letting you stay till 11, but perhaps that is not, I'm just giving this as an example. So we need to, sort of balance it so that our kids don't feel that, we're just, we're not moving with the times.
My kids are listening to this and they are super excited listening to your suggestions. Learned a lot. Thank you, Dr. Pervin. Yeah, the next question is how does one interact with Gen Zs today? I mean, today's generation, how do we interact with them? It's a very general question, but some light on it.
Yeah. So I am going to look at that as older children who you can communicate with in terms of. So here, the communicating with your kids and changing your way of parenting as your child grows older. So you can't parent the same way a 10-year-old and a 15-year-old. A 10-year-old, you can say that this is what you do because I say so, and most of the time the 10-year-old will say, okay, mama, and do it. 15-year-old is not going to. The 15-year-old will need some explanations. And I think as parents, we need to give them those explanations. We need to express uh, to explain why we are doing something. And as I had said earlier, also, their opinion counts too. Understand where they are coming from too. And there is so much which we can read up and so much which we can do about communicating with our children. And I think it pays a lot of dividends if we ask ourselves. So, this is something which I always tell parents, that when your child behaves in a particular way which you do not like, ask yourself the question, why is she doing this? Often finding the answer makes it much easier for you. It may not be that you agree with what she's doing, but the why helps. And if you are able to, that's why asking your child, communicating, talking to her, not lecturing. I think lecturing doesn't work with our kids. In fact, there have been studies which have shown, with adolescents especially, that their brains stop functioning after sentence number two. So if you want to say something, say it in the first two sentences, because the third, fourth, fifth, tenth, nothing goes in. So that is a little difficult. Another thing with adolescents, which I find really useful, is to tell them stories. Instead of giving them advice and information, telling them stories helps. Like, it could be a story about your past or some other family member who had gone through a certain situation. You're talking about, say, drugs, and you know of a friend who had a really tough time because she was on drugs, etc. Talking about that, making a story of it. Also, extremely important is to acknowledge your child's feelings. So when your daughter comes and says, "Oh God, look at this, I can't go for my party because I have this pimple," and you can't even see the damn pimple. But so instead of saying, "Oh God, where is it? I mean, come on, you are looking really good, go ahead." What you are doing is, in her head, mom is trivializing what I'm feeling. So the next time, I don't tell mom what I'm feeling. So here, instead, if you were to say that, yeah, I know that, sometimes even that little zit on your face can make you feel conscious. And she does feel conscious. That's why she's saying it. It's not that she's being dramatic. At that age, that face looking perfect is very, very important for the child. So acknowledging that, yes, I can see that you're feeling terrible about it. Let's see what we can do, helps, instead of just saying, don't be silly, now you just go for the party. So acknowledging your children's feelings makes them feel validated, and they will always talk to you again about what they are going through.
Great tips, ma'am. I enjoyed both the points. One is say whatever you have to say in two sentences and share
Very,
stories instead of lecturing.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah, just taking up from that question, suppose you have more than one child. Like I have three children, and
Hmm.
when you talk about rules about say mobile usage or when the child could be allowed to get a new mobile,
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
there are three. I have one who is 20-year-old, another one who is say 15, 16, and the youngest is just 10. So now we
Hmm.
can't have the same rule for each child. Naturally, that the timings to go out and everything varies, and there's a lot of argument when it comes to that the elder one's allowed, I am not allowed. So how do you any tips on how you could diffuse the tension or set
It is
boundaries?
it is absolutely the way to go about it. There are no, so again, here, what you have to look at is that there are certain things which are non negotiable.
Yeah.
The most important thing which is non negotiable is safety. So while a 20-year-old can go out in the night with her friends alone, a 15-year-old, you would not be able to do that. And it can. So sometimes I think what is also happening is that parents are not very willing to set certain rules in place. That this is the way it is going to be. If you are not happy with it, too bad. That is, you will have, we talk about it. You, of course, you have your discussion that she can go because she has the emotional maturity, or she can drive herself, or whatever your things are, and you can't. And she has, for example, more homework to do than you have. She has more responsibilities than you have. And if after that also there is still a fight, well, then mom rules. This is
Okay.
the way things. So safety is totally non-negotiable. I mean, I just feel that we have to remember that, is this about safety? If it is about safety, sorry, this is the way it is.
Taking up from safety, we have Yasmin Shroff asking, how do we keep children safe during phone usage from spams and scams on the phone or on the internet?
Talk to your child. Talk about also, for that we need to be very well versed in all this. We need to know about social media, we need to know about certain things. And as I said earlier, for younger kids, when you give them the phone, have these rules in place. Tell them you will be looking into their phone whenever you need to. And if they are not agreeable, they don't get a phone. And they can, younger kids, they can say that, well, oh, this is my privacy, etc. But you can say that there are certain things where privacy, again, it's about safety. You are not checking their phone to see what they have, what your 13-year-old girl has said to her 13-year-old crush in class. You are concerned about what language is being used. You are concerned about, are they chatting with someone who they don't know, etc. So one needs to be this about it. Another thing is, with younger kids, put in some controls, like those net nannies. There are many things which you can
Yeah.
insert into their phone so that they cannot see certain sides. And I think talking to them, and the only way we can talk to them is if we have more information than they do. And for that, we need to be really savvy about things. That about, you can't be a certain age before you can use this uh, social media site, or so one needs to and talk to them about situations where there has been, doing this has caused problems for them.
Maybe, ma'am, we could invite you for one more Friday forum, especially on this topic.
On
It's
technology, yes.
yes, on internet
I
safety.
will have to
Thank you,
read up.
ma'am. Yeah, next question, Rashna is asking, if kids have trust issues amongst their friends, how do we help them deal with it? Trust issues among friends.
Okay, so I guess what Rashna means is trust issues, because there have been probably most children who have trust issues which with their friends have either been bullied or been, something with, I have told my best friend, she has gone and told
Yeah.
everyone. So that causes a lot of angst in kids. So here it is, we have to also understand that when, if something like that happens to us, it takes us also a lot of time to trust people, right? So if my best friend has told what I have, what was meant to be something confidential to five other people, what's going to happen? Am I going to be able to trust my best friend again? No. So we have to be able to look at that kids are also like that. So it will be very difficult for them to trust. So to talk to them about how that there are people who are untrustworthy, but there are lots of people who are trustworthy. Also, sometimes that friend may have done it once and you focus on that. So to talk to your child that, you've told her so many things in confidence and she's never blurted out anything. This thing which she said could perhaps be, you know uh, an aberration on her part, or she may be upset or whatever. So to try and do that, and if there are people who you feel are not, it's a very negative relationship where the child wants to trust and that person is constantly breaking her trust, well, then you just let that person go.
Yeah, and Ma'am Jasmine Driver is writing that the parents should also be open with their children and not act like CBI. There are quite a few
Absolutely. That is,
parents who,
that is why I say that, one should tell the child from the beginning that I will be checking. Do not check without the child's knowledge. I think then that is, again, then there is a trust issue between the child and the parent. So I do not trust you because you will look at my phone whenever you get a chance, so I'll delete everything. But if a parent tells the child this, and I feel that trust in parent and child trust develops from the beginning. When I do workshops for young mothers where they have little younger kids, and I always say that tell your child you are leaving the house and going. Let the child cry, scream, shout. But this is where trust starts. Actually, trust starts earlier also, when a kid is crying, for a parent to pick her up, which makes her feel that I can trust this person to contain my emotions. So we need to, at every stage, help our children to trust us.
Just taking on from there, ma'am, about control. We've been on that topic of parental control and the trust issues, safety too. Now, suppose there are joint families, quite a few Parsis till today also, and across India also, joint family system is very much there. Sometimes the grandparents' way of parenting or implementing discipline could differ from the parents. Also, each parent could have a different style of disciplining or setting boundaries. So any tips you could give on that? For example, the grandparent would say, how can you let your daughter come home at 10 or 11, or as you were saying, if the party starts at 11, she's coming home at 12, whereas for you, your dad had set a boundary of 7 in the evening. And there are then issues going on between the grandparent and the mother, and then it passes on to the child also. So how would you communicate even with the grandparents so that boundaries are set and there's no interference when it comes to parenting?
So if I have grandparents on our chat here, I
Yeah.
would really tell them that, we've, as grandparents, you have finished as parents, you have finished parenting. So let your children lead the way, because they need to, as a parent, yes, you may make mistakes, you may have to, but you need to, again, this is the whole thing of competence, right? Even as a adult, you are still treated like a child by your parent. They don't think that you're competent enough to handle it. Now, this point which you made about the grandparents saying that you should tell her to come back early, I feel that is still handleable, because it's the mother who is in charge and says that, I know what I'm doing and this is what will happen. It's the other way around where parents get flummoxed because grandparents spoil the kids, give them
Yeah.
stuff, come in the way of discipline, etc. So here, I think as parents, the first thing that we have to understand is that whatever happens as parents, we are in a position of power in terms of our child. Whatever happens will still be our child. As long as you are fair, you contain their emotions, you communicate with them, etc. So you say no for a sweet and the child will get that sweet from grandmom, let it be. Because, it doesn't make sense to fight every battle with your mother in law. But some parents, what they do is they feel that, oh, my mother in law gives in. So maybe I should also do the same thing. But that is where moms should not. That, oh, I'm the monster and my mother in law, like my child just loves her. At the end of the day, children do respect boundaries. They do respect that, in fact, some years back, there was a huge study done in the United States where they asked adolescents about what kind of parents they wanted. And they all spoke about that they liked parents who set boundaries because they knew that this was it. That this was a boundary which was set by my mom, that I had to come home by 12 o'clock, or my mom would not tolerate bad behavior on my part, etc. So it is really important as a parent to set those boundaries. If a grandparent is spoiling them, let it be, as long as it is a little here and there. If it's a lot, then perhaps talking to them, giving them some information about, that if you do this, this is what could happen to your child, etc. That would help.
Shana Siganpuria is commenting that listening to your child before you jump in is very important, isn't it?
Yes,
You
of
just
course. I think
mentioned
that
about
is
listening.
really important. And that is
Yeah,
why validating what they say, to listen to them and not jump into answer or advice. In fact, a lot of times children don't want our advice. They just want to vent. She comes home from school and says that, oh, my friends were really horrible. They were so mean today. They did this to me and they did that to me. And you just sitting there and listening to her and saying, yeah, it must have been a really tough day for you today. And then the child may perhaps say, no, actually, no, it was not so tough because I had those two other friends who I spent my time with. She just wanted to talk to you, and you did that, and that helped. So, listening, yes, it is really, really very important. And you're also teaching your child to listen to others. So,
true,
really, I think as parents, we are training our children to be the next generation of good
true.
parents.
True. Taking on from there, ma'am, usually they say if you have one child, you are a parent, but when you have two or more, you become a referee. For example, I mean, they're all three of them, and or more maybe, and they all want you to listen to them and maybe judge who's right or who should get the last piece of the chocolate cake or whatever. So one thing is, how do you handle that? Because sometimes all you're doing is just trying to do a balancing act of being a referee, and just settling all three of them down. That was one issue that comes up when it comes to siblings and trying to manage that. The other point that I wanted to ask also was when we talk about character building and helping children think about others. For example, like the last piece of cake and who gets it. You want to create that character of and encourage them to think about others. Any tips you would share on that, please, ma'am?
So, where playing a referee as a parent, of course, I'm sure it would be there when you have more than one child. But also to remember that sometimes, every time you don't have to step in. You can leave them, you teach them negotiation, you teach them compromise, you've done that. So every time you don't need to go into the thing. The time, like I remember someone telling me who had four kids, that she says, I would only respond when there was blood. Otherwise, I didn't respond. So
Sure.
of course that is a but just to let them find their thing, because you choose, saying that okay, let her have it because she's younger, probably the wrongest thing to say to the elder child. That let it be, given to her, because that's what
Mm,
often happens in these kind of situations. Also, do not interact when you are angry, because you've seen your older kid push the younger one, and you are going to just go there and scream at the older child. Take a breath and say that I'll deal with this a little later, because you don't know what your younger kid may have done before she hit
true,
her. I'm not
true.
saying that hitting is acceptable, but to find out. And that is why finding out with kids separately is very important. So, I remember that when my kids were young, my son would say that, oh, you tell her in front of me. And I would say, no, if I want to tell her something, I will tell her privately.
Right.
Or she will say that, no, you tell him in front of me. So, taking the kids apart, speaking to them separately, listening to the story, and then deciding the consequences. Sometimes what may help is also to ask them, so what do you think? There is this piece of cake. Who do you think should get it? Give
Ex-
your reasons. You can say that, it's this red velvet cake is totally the younger one's favorite. So
mm,
perhaps maybe she can have an extra piece, or bring in something that last time at this party or wherever you got that, or so we need to make them think and them to decide, unless it becomes like a maramari where
mm.
you have to
True,
separate the things.
true.
And about
Uh,
character building, what you are saying about giving, sharing, I think that they learn from the beginning because they see you doing that, and
true,
so it does become
true,
uh,
true.
something that they learn.
Just taking on from there, two questions have come. One is that sometimes the children just push the boundaries, or they really push the parents. And also, along with that, most of us are working. When we reach home, we are mentally, physically exhausted, what with the traffic and things like that. So, then giving them quality time and trying to be the referee, or them pushing your boundaries a lot. Sometimes it becomes very difficult to keep your sanity or maintain your mental equilibrium. So, any tips you could give for working parents or stay at home moms when they are being pushed too much?
I think it is very difficult for all of us when we come home from work or tired, even from work, what, even at home, you've been doing so many things as a homemaker, then to have to deal with it. My thing is that when kids push the boundary, the best thing to say is that, you know what, I am not going to interact with you right now. I need my half an hour of time out. I need to calm down and then I will address the situation with you. Or have a rule that kids, you know what, whatever your complaints are, what she did to you and he did to you or whatever, every day when I come home, just give me half an hour of time out to do my own thing or to just relax, and then definitely I will speak about it. If now it can also be, you can tell your child to write it down and keep it. It also helps the child because either writing it down or sending it, depending on whether the child has a phone or not, to just send it and then I will deal with it in my time. It's important to do that because when you've come home, you've probably been on the road and you've been irritated with people and you're going to just go get mad at them, and come home and your child will just say, Mama, I got 8 on 50 in my test, and you just scream at him. So instead, if they are told that, you tell me everything after half an hour, let me just relax, come home, have my cup of tea, get into my home clothes, and then we can talk about it. It may help, and children may also realize that, when mom is angry, it's not the right time to tell her how bad my marks were. Tell her after she's calmer.
Excellent. I would like to share what I do also once while I'm coming back. We are fortunate to live near five gardens. So I sit in the park for 5 minutes, take a few breaths, and then enter home. So
Yeah,
those are also
that's a
some
great way to
tips.
do it too.
Yes,
That's right.
yes. A lot of other questions are coming, ma'am, but I think we are running out of time now. Just last one was about how we could make some quality time for our kids, because even with work from home and all, there are sometimes no boundaries for the time that we are online, working. Or even if you have a 9 to 9 job, by the time you come home, your kids are either asleep or too tired or too busy. Last few tips on how to give quality time to kids.
Well, if you're going to be working 9 to 9, there is no way you can give any quality time to your kids on the weekdays, but then perhaps doing that on a weekend, planning activities with them which they want, not what you want. Of course, barring watching TV together, because that is not quality time. But you can give them the choice of what they want to do. Like you have a teenage daughter who may say, let's go to the mall. Okay, we don't have to, that is also some time spent together. Or let's go and have an ice cream together or something like that. Sometimes even, I mean, again, we are in this new age now. I'm just looking at that mobile phone is wonderful when you're at work and your child sends you a message. You can even have that little exchange on the phone, which is between you and him only, which can also help, like sending a message saying, hey, thinking of you, what have you been doing, not about homework and etc., but just some little interaction that way. But quality time is not TV time. That is not quality time. Quality time is interacting with the child, which is really very important.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We learned a lot. Excellent tips, and all our viewers have sent so many positive comments, so many suggestions. I can't read all of them out as we are running out of time, but Everybody thoroughly enjoyed, and certain tips I am taking home is, be fair to the kids, don't be partial, and we all will have to be referees, but keep our sanity, breathe, and enjoy the process of parenting. There are quite a few young married couples who are so scared of becoming parents, but I'm sure if they've logged in, they'll be looking forward to such a wonderful experience of effective parenting. Thank you so much, ma'am.
All right.
And yes, for all
Thank
our
you.
viewers, yeah, thank you. For all our
Thank
viewers,
you, everybody.
in case you want to contact Dr. Pervin Dadachanji, her email is pdadachanji. Yeah, all the details are your pdadachanji@hotmail.com. You could even take a screenshot of this slide, please. And dear viewers, I'm sure you're enjoying our Friday forums. Geoparsi is doing a lot of good work during the pandemic and before. Also, a lot of Parsi babies being added to the community. For more details on all the things that we are doing and how to apply, our website is geoparsi.com. In case you want to write any suggestions about the other Friday forums that we could do, or any suggestions or comments for Geoparsi, please write to our email geoparsi151@gmail.com. We also have a very interactive Facebook and Instagram pages. Please post your pictures, comments. We'll be looking forward to hear from you. And next Friday is also going to be an exciting session. Please do join us on next Friday too. All the best, and thank you